Hello everyone, how's Karen and the kids? How's I don't know, man. I don't know, how's Melania or something? I'm sorry, okay? I went to Boys State, bro. I went to the Nathan M. Wolf Located Academy, bro. I know my video schedule is inconsistent again, alright? I got scholarships to apply for, candidates to campaign for, and it just came to me that this 2024 election will be the first election I'll ever vote in. And on top of this, I'll be eligible to run for different offices myself. Today, we're going to be talking about a couple of things, ranging from Trump's hush money trial to Biden's being seen as unfit for the presidency, but all with one general theme, that being the red wave that seems to be occurring. But because you clicked on this video, I'm sure you already knew that. Oh. This script is so outdated, man. Trump literally got shot. Time for a rewrite. Alright, so first, let's take a look at what exactly the Orange Man has been charged with and why all of the media has been calling him a felon. So, for starters, Donald Trump was convicted with 34 counts of falsifying business records. Many of you that are literate when it comes to law may be thinking to yourselves, wait a minute, isn't that a misdemeanor? And to that I say, you're right. For any normal instance, it would absolutely be a misdemeanor as opposed to a felony. However, in this specific case, it was alleged that the Orange Man was falsifying business records with the intent to cover up another crime, which would make those counts a Class E felony. Fair enough, except for the fact that we have absolutely no clue what crimes he has committed. In fact, the jury doesn't even have to know. According to the jury instructions, and I quote, "Although you must conclude unanimously that the defendant conspired to promote or prevent the election of any person to a public office by unlawful means, you need not be unanimous as to what those unlawful means were," end quote. So, allow me to explain how weird these jury instructions are. Say someone is in court for tax evasion because they have underreported their income. If we use these same jury instructions, essentially we can find this person guilty of hiding some form of illegitimate business without actually knowing what kind of illegitimate business that person is conducting. Generally, juries must be unanimous in all charges, but the judge has essentially said, all you have to agree on is that the person has made this money illegally somewhere. You don't have to agree on how they made the money illegally. This is ridiculous, obviously. It's an absurdity to our legal system. It's an obvious hung jury, and it will most likely result in a motion to appeal in our appellate courts. Ignoring that. And I believe the judge, prosecution, and most people in support of these charges already know this. The only question is, if they know the charges aren't going to stick, why are they so supportive of the charges? The real answer is because they just want to call Trump a convicted felon for a few months. It's highly unlikely that Trump will end up in prison due to several factors, including how old he is, and the nature of the alleged crime not even being violent. So even if the charges do stick, they aren't going to affect him. For some reason, however, these people cheering for this conviction assume that Trump is going to lose support because of this, which has simply not been the case. Generally, people didn't care about the conviction of Trump. There was widely no difference in how the people are going to vote afterwards, according to a poll done by Reuters. In fact, the convictions only cemented Trump even further as the Republican candidate. Well, actually, after the shooting I found another motive for charging Trump as a felon. Democratic Congressman Benny Thompson and member of the Committee on Homeland Security proposed legislation that would, and I quote, remove Secret Service protection from anyone convicted of a felony and sentenced to prison. Maybe I shouldn't have directly quoted that. Something about that sounds wrong. The grammar's terrible. And I don't know why, because it's technically correct, I think. Anyway, basically what this means is that if Trump were to be sentenced to prison, even for a day, he would be prevented from having Secret Service protection, which would have made it a lot easier for him to be assassinated, especially when the original date for sentencing was just 2 days before the assassination attempt. Now, I'm not typically a conspiratorial type, but that just feels a little suspicious. It feels like, at the very least, the guy on the roof aiming for the president was definitely allowed by someone to be there. Now that we got that horrendous trial out of the way, let's take a look at Biden's chances of winning the election, starting of course with the very beginning of his decline in the eyes of Democrats, which would be February of 2024, when Special Counsel Robert Hur refused to put Biden on trial for the mishandling of classified documents, on the grounds, get this, that Biden was an elderly man with a poor memory. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think if a man can't be put on trial due to mental incompetence, he probably shouldn't be the best pick as a presidential candidate. According to NBC, approximately 76% of voters were already concerned about Biden's competency and his age. So this on top of Biden calling the president of Egypt the head of Mexico, Biden looking confused almost constantly, and more, have done irreparable damage to the Democratic Party. So much so that even Jen Psaki, Biden's former press secretary, is talking about how awful Biden has been performing. This brings us neatly along to the second catalyst, the Trump versus Biden debate. Biden was barely alive in this debate. His performance was so terrible that the only one pretending the debate went well was his wife at first, and that didn't even last long. All of a sudden, it was okay to criticize Biden's mental wellness among mainstream Democrats, and many normies were awakening to the absolute state of the Democratic Party. And Trump just looked like the much better candidate for it. Now, there are very few Democrats that aren't calling for Biden to drop out, with only the most paid or the most delusional sticking by his side. Harry, assist. Alright, so upon the original writing of this script, I did not include the attempted assassination of Trump, which is, of course, because the script was originally written before the attempted assassination. So I figured I'd just add a bit of a snippet in here because it seems pretty relevant, honestly. So basically, a registered Republican that donated to Act Blue, a Democrat Political Action Committee, or PAC for short, tried to kill Trump, but had absolutely garbage aim, and there are a bunch of weird claims that he's an extremist Republican, but of course that doesn't really make sense at all, because even if he was a Republican, it would still be at the fault of the left for spewing the rhetoric that Trump is a danger to America and is an extremist that doesn't represent the Republican Party, but I digress. I could talk about how botchy the security was, the disgusting, vile responses to innocent people getting shot, not even counting Trump, or how cancel culture is pretty quickly shifting to the right, but I'm not going to waste your time. However, I just want to highlight the effect the failed assassination had on the Trump campaign, and more broadly the conservative movement.
Service into motion, immediately jumping around the former president in a protective mode. The crowd has been screaming. They are standing by. You can hear some voices there saying, "Are we ready to go? Are we ready to go?" We are looking at President Trump. This does not look good. I'm going to be honest with you. From what we can see right here, it looks like they are attempting to move him out, that he may have been injured. He is holding up his arm. He is pumping his fist, but clearly Secret Service wants to get him out of this situation.
Normally, when you hear gunshots are fired and you visibly see someone getting shot, crowds normally scream and run away. But the effect Trump had on the people in his reaction rallied his supporters and made his rivals respect him, or at the very least, made them recognize how much of a threat he is. A good leader instills good qualities in people. And that day he instilled courage and hope across America. Even Democrats, or at least some, the more sensible of the bunch, had to acknowledge the powerful symbolism emitted through Trump's actions. This has essentially made Trump the winner automatically. After the assassination attempt, there was also a few other events that occurred, most of which probably isn't much of a surprise to you guys because I'm slower than the average Biden administration staffer when it comes to obtaining news. But first, Senator Menendez of New Jersey has been found guilty of accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of bribes, extortion, and perhaps most importantly, of acting as a foreign agent. This conviction has been so bad that some Democrats are calling for his resignation, and incidents like this are striking the core of what one may call the purposeless progressive movement, which is the new name I'm giving the neoliberalism that we're seeing today. Progress for the sake of progress. Additionally, 4 Democrat operatives were finally arrested for ballot stuffing in 2019 during a mayoral primary election, once again dealing a huge blow to the credibility of this movement. For the first time in a long time, it feels like the majority is leaning much further right than before, almost like we're in a dream. Which leads me to our sponsor, Endless Dreams. Just a little disclaimer. This isn't actually a real sponsorship in the sense that I'm not getting paid or anything for this. This is more of a self-promotion than anything. Are you in need of a gaming community without all of the politics and toxicity of everyday life? Tired of the lack of escapism? Are you tired of your favorite RPGs being ruined by talentless hacks who have no respect for the franchise you grew to love? Well, say hello to Endless Dreams. Endless Dreams is a 5M server that my dad and I have been working on with some friends for months now.
Ain't no way, bro.
Sorry, I was just trying to turn.
And we've recently opened up for beta testing. Dive into a world where you can partake in over 10 different small jobs, including window cleaning and garbage collecting, as well as several player-ran businesses you can be hired into, such as EMS, MRPD, DOJ, and plenty more. Feeling like a degenerate? Want to be a terrible leech of society? You can rob all sorts of places if you want. Immerse yourself and create your own lore within the city, or that can't be rewritten at some CEO's stroke of a pen or the raising of hands in a committee. Join us in our mission to profoundly impact lives positively through the power of role-playing. Plus, chances are you're going to run into me frequently. If any of this sounds interesting to you in the slightest, please take the time to go into the description right now and join our Discord server. Now, back to our regular programming. Now, if you are familiar with this channel, or should I say my more recent videos, you know I generally like to provide solutions to the problems I complain about. But in this case, I want to provide more of a preventative measure to ensure this red wave doesn't end up like the puddle you made in your friend's bed when you were 4 years old. First things first, you need to prune your movement of grifters, reactionaries, or maybe just outsiders that have yet to prove themselves. Now, many of you may be concerned with that last part, but let me get to it before you judge. The people calling for the cancellation of people for screaming about Trump being alive, those are your enemies just as much, if not more so, than the ones that are screaming about how Trump should have been killed. People like Libs of TikTok should be shunned and ostracized from the conservative movement for using the tactics of the enemy, and we should strive to maintain a pure movement that does not stoop as low as the opposition. After this, find the grifters, the ones that claim to be conservative out of convenience or even to subvert the movement intentionally. One such case would be Sydney Watson's reaction to Amber Rose being the speaker at the RNC. Somehow she implies that she is the spokesman for conservative values when defending her, but in other cases she claims to be a moderate. Now, I was a fan of Sydney Watson, and having her own opinion about things is perfectly fine, but the slimy way it was presented, I just did not agree with at all. Claiming that Amber Rose embodies conservatism at all is ridiculous at its face, which is why, although very controversial, I will now put Sydney Watson in the category of either grifter or misguided. Now, this isn't to disrespect Amber Rose, she seems genuine in her change of heart, but I think she's making progress. She's not necessarily there. That leads me on to my next point, which is you shouldn't be so trusting of those who just switched parties. And by trusting, I don't necessarily mean that you should assume that she's sabotaging. It's just, she's not quite there, you know? We still want to welcome all who agree with us, but that doesn't mean we have to give them a huge platform and a large amount of authority that comes with speaking at the RNC so quickly. I do like what she said, but I feel like the RNC just wasn't the place to say it, because honestly I feel like it would have reached the right target audience that way. Or in my opinion, what should be the target audience, which is disillusioned content creators that feel like there's no way out. Her speech is actually a pretty good story of hope, of new beginnings of sorts, even if it wasn't a complete shift in all values. Now, along with the pruning of the wrong kinds of people within the movement, we must make sure not to destroy our own morals in retribution for what the opposite side has done. Alright, that's about it for today, guys. If you have any thoughts, questions, suggestions, or maybe you just want to yell at me to go get a job or something, go ahead and leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and whatever. Also, did you guys know that the subscribe button does a weird thing whenever I say subscribe? Like, I never really noticed it until recently, because I don't really, watch YouTube videos like that. But, like, watch this. Subscribe. Anyways, yeah, that's all I got. Thank you guys for listening to 2,621 words of complete and utter nonsense.